13 days until people hit the ballot box. I know that early voting has started, and I think that's total crap anyways, but still, we're at the point in the campaigns where the big guns are starting to come out, and hey, take a look, there's Joe Biden. He's leaving off stage, obviously, because he was only at the podium for a very, very, very small, very, very vetted and prepared audience, but he had a very strange comment, one where I think a little bit too much of the truth ended up coming out, where he just blurts out, "We gotta lock him up." It's like, wait, what? You gotta lock up Trump. I was like, that's a weird thing for the last time I checked. I know it doesn't work out in practice, but he is still the sitting president of the United States, openly advocating for the further corruption and perversion of the judicial system. Because, okay, cool, you're looking at the potential sentencing for Trump and what's going to happen, that goofy ass New York case. At this point in time, the sentencing isn't until I think January or something like that, and it still hasn't gone through the appeals process, and the other federal cases have been basically bounced because of Judge Eileen Cannon out of Miami-Dade County laid down the decision that presidential discretion basically negates all of Jack Smith's goofy ass investigations, and he's refiled one of his petitions. But in actuality, there's a lot of legal lawfare going around at the top, and I would imagine after the election, whatever way this ends up going, a lot of that rhetoric is going to heat up, but there's nothing on the docket right now that would have Trump staring at the four small walls of a tiny prison cell. And even with the sentencing that's coming up, let's just say everything all goes according to the Dems' plan, wink wink, nudge nudge, fortification out the wazoo. Is it possible they get Trump into, Gen Pop? Is it possible he's bunk buddies with somebody out there on Rikers Island? I don't really think so. This is once again, very likely one final time, because I wouldn't be surprised, right? Because you see all of the 47 iconography on all of Trump's rallies on a bunch of different merchandise. Hell, my MAGA hat has a 45 to 47 on it. I wouldn't put it past the Democrats to just spitefully have Biden step down just so Kamala comes in and messes up everything in the aftermath of the election. I think that that's very possible at this point in time, because they're just such a spiteful group, and this just makes it so obvious, right? Retiring President Biden stunned listeners Tuesday by saying his predecessor Donald Trump should be locked up 14 days before the presidential election in which Trump is a Republican nominee. "I said this five years ago, you lock me up. We gotta lock him up," Biden, 81, said during a visit to the Democratic campaign office in Concord, New Hampshire, the Granite State's capital. Yeah, that's nice. For who did they have him stumping for? This is absolutely crazy, right? Because it's been since 2016 since we've had an incumbent president out there acting as a surrogate for the next nominee, and Barack, who we will get to very shortly, he was making big stops out there for Hillary, but the DNC has Joe out there in New Hampshire in what looks like a lunchroom. Like, they aren't even showing the crowd. He's still the president after all. But after a 4-second pause he had, during which his audience enthusiastically applauded, which that's interesting to think about, Biden added in an attempted backtracking, politically, lock him up, lock him out. That's what we got to do. But the Trump campaign had a couple of other things to say about this. Freudian slip? Nah, this is just right at the forefront of their mind, because they kind of know that they're cooked. I mean, look at all the polls at this point in time, and even still, with the super sampling of Democratic voters that they have had for, as far as I've been following politics, there's always a leftist bent to all of these reporting firms. It's on track to being an absolute ass kicking. But anyways, Joe Biden just admitted the truth. He and Kamala's plan all along has been to politically persecute their opponent, President Trump, because they can't beat him fair and square, which, I mean, it's really looking a lot that way. Trump campaign spokeswoman Caroline Leavitt said in a statement, the Harris-Biden administration is the real threat to democracy. We call on Kamala Harris to condemn Joe Biden's disgraceful remark. But no, she couldn't do that because she was out in Detroit getting endorsements from, well, actually not from Marshall Mathers, because he was there to introduce Barack, which is kind of crazy, right? Like, you're in Eminem's backyard, okay? And you've got a real tiny place that they were at. That's kind of pathetic, right? So I don't know who this attracts, really, if I'm being completely honest. Like, we're using Politico. That's who's running this story. But you can see right there up top, 3 of the 4 stories: anxiety over Pennsylvania, Michigan, Dems worry, and then a possible Trump cabinet. They're all just kind of bracing for, if we're being completely honest, like if Joe Biden is being accused of a Freudian slip, you also got the media going, oh my God, we cannot stand another 4 years of Democrat rule. We need somebody to rail against. We need an opposition. We need another news cycle of Orange Man bad. But it's just, once again, plotting for the short term, not realizing that everybody's just kind of done with this stuff, because Eminem's been in the tank for the Dems for a long, at least 2020, probably earlier than that. He's been writing, Trump man bad lyrics for a long time, and you got somebody who's on the cusp of being a billionaire, and Eminem up there on stage thinking that they're the resistance, they're gonna go out there and fight the power. Bro, it's just embarrassing at this point in time. All of the star power that the Dems can muster, like, you take a look at the celebrity list of endorsements over on Trump's side, and it's a gaggle of has-beens and never was. No offense, as much no offense as you can possibly have from that statement, but in actuality, does it matter? Because you look, right? We're 2 weeks removed. 13 days is just easier to say 2 weeks. And where's Kamala playing? In her own backyard, Detroit, which is overwhelmingly going to vote in her direction. It just relies on the rest of the state of Michigan flips back to Trump this time around, which, just remembering and recalling the 2020 election results, wouldn't you think you'd rather have Joe Biden out there in Detroit? Because he actually pulled a bigger percentage of the black population than even Barack did in either 2008 or 2012. So is this the DNC once again just putting a bridle on Joe because he's just so wildly popular? I can't wait for those vote totals to come in, because you remember Joe Biden got 81 million votes. How many votes is Kamala going to get, even if she does win? But let's gloss over this just a little bit. Detroit's hometown star and rapper urged voters in the key battleground state to support Vice President Harris, telling a raucous rally crowd of 12,000 people. That's amazing, right? Because it's just Trump and a few of his surrogates, and he pulls, unironically, 8-9 times that amount of people. And she has to get arguably one of the greatest living rappers. That's crazy to pull 12,000 people. But yes, Tuesday evening, that Americans don't want a country where people are worried about retribution for expressing their opinions. Are you having a fucking laugh? And it's so funny to compare and contrast that with what Joe just said, and then to have this absolute dimwit come out and say, yeah, we don't want to live in a country where, a retribution where either, consequences for our years and years of action are dehumanizing rhetoric. We don't want to be held accountable for that. We're just simply lacking the self-awareness that, oh, you've been doing that for just 4 years. You take a look at what the media and what he's been talking about for a long time. There has been open hatred and vilification for conservatives, and a lot of that boiled to the surface back when that guy right there was in the Oval Office. He's the impetus for a lot of this division and hatred in the wider world, problems between the races, but that's something that we can go ahead and touch on at a later date. But that's what the Democrats are up to. What are the Republicans doing? Oh, I don't know. Being the Big Ten party in the best possible way by bringing in actual notable notable Democrats who might have had a more conservative lean, because you could say with Tulsi Gabbard, and somebody that we followed for a while, she has actually been bipartisan. She was actually notable. This isn't one of those situations where, oh, take a look, oh, Liz Cheney or Adam Kinzinger, oh, they're stumping for the Democratic platform. Like, Tulsi Gabbard was actually somebody instead of some jackass who's riding on their family legacy, who the party that they're simping for right now sounded an awful lot like a Hassan Twitch mod in describing how they'd like to treat the father of said candidate, or somebody who didn't have a notable record at all prior to crying about the injustices of January 6th. People know the name Tulsi Gabbard, and for her to announce that she's leaving the Democrat Party, even though she's been an independent for a while, if we're being completely honest, labels and tags and party affiliations at this point mean absolutely nothing, and joining the Republican Party at the Trump rally. Proud to stand here with you today. Something she hasn't been able to say about politics in, well, quite a long time. And it's interesting, right? Because you got Trump, he's out there in Greensboro, North Carolina, which North Carolina has been close in the polls for the past few elections, and Greensboro County I don't necessarily think is all that in the tank for Trump, but it's him and Tulsi that are out there, maybe a couple of other people that are running for Congress or different seats, and they're drawing a massive crowd No celebrities needed. Former Democratic Hawaii Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, who has been hitting the campaign trail for Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump, has officially crossed the aisle. The Democrat Party has no home for people like us. No, but we do have a home in the Republican Party, where we are welcomed with open arms by President Trump. Yeah, and that's the big distinction here, because the Republican Party, or if you're like myself, a Canadian, the Conservative Party, doesn't really fit your ideals, because it might actually be a legitimate conservative-minded individual. You might have right-leaning, right-wing proclivities. You aren't just a different shade of centrism or center-left who likes to tell a few edgy jokes. Because the wider GOP, the Republican Party, yeah, they're total ass. The CPC, they're just blue liberals. So the fact that she points out, yeah, Trump's the impetus and not so much the Republican Party, I like it. Draw a distinction and tell the party, if you want to win, if you want to grow as an institution, this is what we like. But we've also been hearing this stuff for quite a long time at this point. But yes, Gabbard, who switched to an independent in 2022, told the crowd at Trump's Tuesday night rally in Greensboro, North Carolina. Just funny pictures that they snap. I mean, maybe some of it's on purpose, but it's not as egregious as the way that the Daily Mail, I think. I couldn't find it. Maybe they changed it by the time that I refreshed the page, but they were trying to, make it seem like Trump was trying to kiss Tulsi on the mouth. It's like, oh my god, the way that you guys shot that picture on an angle, and you're just being deceptive hacks. Like, come on now. And it's because of my love for this country, and specifically because of the leadership that President Trump has brought to transform the Republican Party and bring it back to the party of the people and the party of peace, that I'm proud to stand here today with you with President Trump and announce that I'm joining the Republican Party, the 43-year-old declared. I was a Democrat for over 20 years. Today's Democrat Party is completely unrecognizable, which points to a clear choice that we have in this election day, continued Gabbard, who is a member of Trump's transition team. Interesting. Wonder if she'll get a spot in said cabinet, whatever Politico thinks. But when you look at the party of Kamala Harris, for example, she's anti-freedom, she's pro-censorship, she's pro-open borders, and she's pro-war without even pretending to care about peace. Gabbard, a veteran, blasted warmongers like former Republican Vice President Dick Cheney and his daughter, former GOP Wyoming Senator, she was a Congresswoman. Jesus, New York Post, a copy editor, Liz Cheney, for supporting Harris. Yes, 59. Well, she just turned 60, by the way. So again, geez, here I am fact-checking shit on the fly, bro. What's going on? Who care more about power and feeding the military-industrial complex than they care about you, the American people, and peace. President Trump has pledged to end wars, not start them. And that's why, in his eyes, of the Kamala Harris, a Dick Cheney, a Democrat Party, they will do everything possible to try to destroy him. She added, accusing them of weaponizing the federal government to try to silence him. Look at Trump, he's so weird. He's standing off on the stage just looking all kind of goofy, and then now he's trying to kiss her. Oh my god, it's just like 2016 when that tape released. He said that he needs to grab women by the... Oh my god, it's so terrible. I hope he clarifies that when he goes on the Joe Rogan show at the end of the week. Oh my god, it's finally happening after years of speculation at this point in time. Joe hosting Trump a little over a week away from the election. Now, it's supposed to record on Friday. I don't know if it's going to be going out over the weekend or at the beginning of the week, but I'll be interested because this will be probably, like a lot of people, the first time in a long time they've checked out Joe Rogan's show. And it's interesting because I don't necessarily think this is going to win over anybody new. There's only opportunities for Trump to get caught up and look bad. I still think it's a fun and personable thing to do. I don't think if this election was closer, Trump would take this risk. Because Joe, for all of his foibles, he's a pretty good interviewer. He acts as a decent blank slate and just asks generic questions, pokes and prods around. He's not coming through with an agenda to get a certain answer. So if he takes that position, I think it could be a very interesting interview. Former President Donald Trump is expected to record an interview with podcasting behemoth Joe Rogan on Friday. The interview will take place at Rogan's studio in Austin, Texas, according to a person familiar with the plans who granted anonymity to discuss the matter. The Joe Rogan Experience Twitter account has been blasting it out that, it's going to be taking place on Friday. I don't know if they confirmed it's going to be in Austin, but, looking at Trump at a lot of those other podcasts that he's been doing recently, he's been on the road, so it wouldn't surprise me if it's at his studio. Rogan, who has more than 14 million followers on Spotify, has long occupied the top position in national podcast ratings. He has between him and Tucker Carlson at the top throughout basically all of 2024. And Trump's done Tucker's show a couple of times, I think, at this point, and now he's just kind of completing top of the charts. Yes, and Trump's appearance on the show continues the campaign's push to win young male voters. In recent weeks, Trump has appeared on such male-friendly podcasts. Well, you take a look at the top podcasts that are out there, and outside of the one that Kamala Harris appeared on, that whoring Call Me Daddy podcast, it's all male-owned and operated, because being an engaging, successful podcaster, you kind of have to be interesting. That's more or less why the top of the charts are dominated by, well, who dominates the top of the charts. In recent weeks, Trump has appeared on such male-friendly podcasts as This Week with Theo Vaughn. Oh, I didn't catch that one. Full Send, his third appearance with the Nelk Boys, his show with The Undertaker, on Barstool Sports. He has been everywhere, but of course, hopping on Rogan, well, that's going to be the biggest thing, and that one's going to be, it's arguably going to be the most high-profile campaign stop that either candidate makes. And if Trump comes across like he did during the Undertaker show, it could really dispel any lingering assertions that people could have that he's just simply restating his position, kind of becoming an automaton on the campaign trail. If he just sits, talks UFC, talks policy, sprinkles in a bunch of different talking points over the course of 1, 2, 3 hours perhaps, it'll be very interesting, and it's definitely going to set the stage for the home stretch, the just over a week that'll be left in the campaign. And I can't believe that we're almost here, and I can't believe that this meeting is finally happening. I can't believe how desperate the Democrats really are at this point. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.